Imagine a name so powerful, so synonymous with wealth, that it became a benchmark for unimaginable riches. A name whispered in awe, spoken in fury, and ultimately, carved into the very foundations of modern society. This isn't a fairy tale of kings and queens, nor the Wild West saga of gunslingers. This is the true story of a man who, from the most unassuming of beginnings, built an empire so vast it touched every corner of the globe, ignited fierce national debates, and then, with an equally astonishing intensity, began to give it all away. His name was John D. Rockefeller. But who was he, truly? Was he the ruthless, robber baron, depicted in searing cartoons and fiery newspaper headlines, a figure of unfettered corporate greed who crushed all in his path? Or was he the visionary architect of an industrial age, who brought order to chaos, efficiency to waste, and light to millions through the humble lamp oil that powered a burgeoning nation? And perhaps most perplexing of all, how did this man, once the very symbol of American capitalism's excesses, transform into the greatest philanthropist the world had ever seen, seeding institutions that would fight disease, advance knowledge, and uplift humanity for generations to come? To understand John D. Rockefeller, we must peel back the layers of myth and legend. We must journey back to a simpler America, to a childhood shaped by a traveling charlatan father and a devout, unyielding mother. We'll witness the spark of ambition in a meticulous young bookkeeper, see him gamble everything on a murky, volatile substance called oil, and watch as he masterfully, some would say mercilessly, constructs a monopoly that redefined industrial power. But we'll also discover the deeply private man, the devout Baptist who believed wealth was a gift from God to be managed responsibly. The man who, having conquered the world of commerce, turned his gaze towards the eradication of suffering and the advancement of human well-being, applying the same rigorous logic and strategic brilliance to giving away his fortune as he did to earning it. This isn't just a biography of a man, it's the story of an era. An era of explosive growth, cutthroat competition, and profound social change. It's the story of how one individual, through sheer will and unparalleled foresight, helped to illuminate the dark corners of the world, both literally and figuratively. Prepare to delve into the captivating, controversial, and ultimately transformative life of John D. Rockefeller. His story is far more intricate, more compelling, and more relevant than you might ever have imagined.
Part 1, The Seeds of Ambition, 1839 to 1865. Chapter 1, Humble Beginnings, Hard Lessons. The year 1839 arrived with little fanfare in the quiet hamlet of Richford, New York, nestled amidst the rolling hills of the southern tier. Yet, on July 8, in a modest farmhouse, John Davison Rockefeller drew his first breath, a breath that would one day command an empire of oil and a fortune beyond comprehension. His childhood, however, was anything but grand. It was a peculiar blend of fervent religious devotion and the erratic, often dubious, influence of his father. William Avery Rockefeller, known locally as Big Bill or, more tellingly, Doc Rockefeller, was a man of elusive charm and even more elusive ethics. A self-proclaimed botanic physician and traveling salesman, he peddled patent medicines and engaged in various speculative ventures, some of which skirted the edges of legality. He was a flamboyant figure, a stark contrast to the quiet, disciplined world his son would later build. Big Bill was often absent, leaving his family for weeks or months at a time, sometimes under a different name, chasing dubious schemes across the burgeoning American landscape. His unpredictability, his readiness to cut corners, and his frequent disappearances instilled in young John a profound aversion to disorder and a deep-seated desire for stability and control. If his father was the wind, John would become the unshakable rock. The true anchor of John's early life was his mother, Eliza Davison Rockefeller. A devout Baptist of Scottish and Irish descent, Eliza was the very embodiment of moral rectitude and unwavering practicality. While Big Bill was off pursuing his fantastical endeavors, Eliza diligently managed the household, often on meager means, instilling in her children the bedrock values of hard work, thrift, and self-reliance. She taught them to count pennies, to mend rather than replace, and to see waste as a sin. Sundays were sacred, filled with church services and Bible study. It was from Eliza that John learned the importance of discipline, the power of prayer, and the unwavering conviction that wealth, if acquired, came with a profound responsibility to God and mankind. Her influence was the steady flame that guided him, even as the shadows of his father's wanderings flickered at the edges of their lives. The Rockefeller family moved frequently, a testament to Big Bill's restless nature and perhaps, his need to outrun certain entanglements. From Richford, they journeyed to Moravia, then to Oswego, New York, each move disrupting John's nascent sense of place. Finally, in 1853, they settled in Strongsville, Ohio, a small farming community near Cleveland. These constant relocations, far from unsettling young John, seemed to steel his resolve. They taught him adaptability, an ability to assess new environments quickly, and perhaps, reinforced his inherent need to create his own secure, ordered world, one that wouldn't be subject to the whims of others. Even as a boy, John Rockefeller carried within him an internal compass that pointed steadily towards opportunity, stability, and the quiet, unyielding pursuit of purpose. His humble beginnings, far from being a disadvantage, proved to be a crucible, forging the character that would one day shape an industry and, indeed, a nation. Chapter 2: The Apprentice of Commerce. The peripatetic nature of his childhood had instilled in young John a deep-seated appreciation for structure, a quality he found abundantly in the world of numbers. In Strongsville and later in Cleveland, where the family eventually moved, his time at school was marked by an undeniable aptitude for mathematics. While other boys might have chafed at columns of figures, John found a comforting logic within them. He excelled at mental arithmetic, his mind quickly calculating profits, losses, and percentages. This wasn't just an academic skill, it was an intuitive grasp of how the world of commerce functioned, a premonition of his future. As the years passed, the question of higher education arose, as it did for many ambitious young men of his era. But for John, the path to a formal university degree seemed circuitous, a detour from the practical application of his talents. He saw the burgeoning opportunities in the rapidly industrializing American landscape and understood that real-world experience, coupled with precise knowledge, would be his most valuable assets. College, in his view, was a luxury he couldn't afford, not in terms of money, but in terms of time. His decision was swift and characteristically pragmatic: forego the university halls for the bustling thoroughfares of the business world. Instead, he enrolled for a mere 10-week session at Folsom's Commercial College in Cleveland. This wasn't a place for abstract theories or philosophical debates. Folsom's was a crucible for practical knowledge, designed to equip young men with the essential tools of commerce, penmanship, banking, and, most importantly, bookkeeping. Here, John meticulously honed his skills, perfecting his ledger entries, understanding the flow of debits and credits, and grasping the fundamental principles of business law. This condensed course was far more vital to his future than any classical education could have been. It gave him the precise, methodical framework upon which he would build an empire. Then came the fateful day, a date that would resonate throughout his life, September 26, 1855. For weeks, John had tirelessly pounded the pavements of Cleveland, seeking employment. He knocked on every door, presented himself with quiet confidence, and returned day after day, undeterred by rejection. Finally, Hewitt and Tuttle, a small firm of commission merchants and produce shippers, gave him a chance. He began as an assistant bookkeeper, a humble position, but for John, it was the opening he needed. He would later refer to this day, with characteristic reverence, as his Day of Days, a milestone that marked his entry into the professional world. It became an annual personal holiday, celebrated with quiet reflection on the trajectory his life had taken from that pivotal moment. At Hewitt and Tuttle, John was not merely an employee, he was an absorbed student of commerce. He plunged into his work with an almost obsessive dedication, his pen moving swiftly and accurately across the ledgers. He understood that every penny counted, every entry told a story of profit or loss, efficiency or waste. He learned the nuances of shipping, the ebb and flow of agricultural markets, and the delicate art of client relations. His meticulousness was legendary. he could recall figures and details long after they were recorded. He quickly earned the trust of his employers, rising within a year to the position of cashier and bookkeeper, a testament to his intelligence and unwavering diligence. Yet, his ambition stretched beyond being an employee. The world of commission merchants offered a tantalizing glimpse into the opportunities that awaited an independent spirit. In 1859, the opportunity arrived. A neighbor, Maurice B. Clark, approached him with a proposition: form a partnership to operate a commission merchant business. John, just 20 years old, had saved $2,000 from his meager earnings, a testament to his strict adherence to thrift. He matched Clark's investment, borrowing a crucial $1,000 from his father at a hefty 10% interest, a loan he repaid with characteristic promptness. Thus was born Clark and Rockefeller. The firm thrived, particularly during the tumultuous years of the Civil War, supplying goods and provisions. John, now a partner, wasn't just keeping books, he was negotiating deals, assessing risks, and cultivating relationships. He learned firsthand the vagaries of supply and demand, the importance of reliable suppliers, and the paramount need for sound financial management. These were the true, growing pains of a young entrepreneur, the invaluable, real-world education that would prepare him for the colossal challenges that lay ahead. He was no longer just an apprentice, he was a businessman in his own right, his compass now pointing toward an even grander horizon. Chapter 3: Oil's Whisper, Cleveland's Roar. While John D. Rockefeller meticulously managed his growing commission merchant business, a seismic shift was occurring roughly 100 miles to the east, a shift that would irrevocably alter the course of his life and the destiny of nations. The year was 1859, the very same year Clark and Rockefeller was founded, when Edwin Drake successfully drilled for oil in Titusville, Pennsylvania. What followed was not merely a discovery, it was a detonation. News of rock oil gushing from the earth ignited an almost insane speculative frenzy. Men poured into western Pennsylvania, abandoning farms and families, driven by the intoxicating dream of instant riches. The oil fields became a chaotic, muddy, lawless frontier. Derricks sprang up overnight like grotesque trees, fortunes were made and lost in a single day, and the price of crude oil swung wildly, unpredictably. This was the Wild West of industry, a realm of sheer speculation, where luck often trumped logic. For a man like John D. Rockefeller, whose mind craved order, efficiency, and predictability, this initial chaos was almost repellent. He observed it with a cautious distance, ever the calculated risk-taker, not the reckless gambler. Yet, even in the midst of this pandemonium, a clearer path began to emerge, one that led not to the dusty, muddy fields of Titusville, but to the burgeoning industrial centers like Cleveland. Cleveland's strategic position was undeniable. Situated on the shores of Lake Erie, with vital railroad lines radiating in every direction, it was a natural hub for refining and transportation. Crude oil could flow in from Pennsylvania, be transformed, and then shipped out to markets across the burgeoning United States. The raw material was in the ground, but the true value, Rockefeller understood, lay in its processing and distribution. Initially, John D. remained skeptical of this oil boom. He saw the volatility, the waste, the sheer lack of structure. But his partner, Maurice Clark, saw the promise, and Clark's brother, James, was already investing in the oil region. The key turning point came through a brilliant English inventor and chemist named Samuel Andrews. Andrews had a keen understanding of the refining process and saw the potential for greater efficiency and higher quality kerosene, the primary product of oil at the time, used to light homes and businesses. It was Andrews who convinced Rockefeller that the true opportunity lay not in drilling for the volatile black liquid, but in refining it. It was here, in the controlled environment of a factory, that order could be imposed on chaos. In 1863, Rockefeller, along with Clark and Andrews, ventured into this new territory, forming the firm Andrews, Clark and Company and building their first refinery on the banks of Kingsbury Run in Cleveland. From the very beginning, Rockefeller's focus was singular: efficiency, quality, and the ruthless minimization of waste. While other refiners struggled with inconsistent product and discarded valuable byproducts, Rockefeller, guided by Andrews's expertise, sought to extract every possible drop of value from each barrel of crude. Nothing was to be wasted. The lighter ends became naphtha, the heavier ends became lubricants and paraffin wax, even the waste residues found a purpose. This wasn't about quick riches gleaned from a lucky strike, it was about the painstaking, systematic creation of sustainable profit through superior processes. This was John D. Rockefeller's true genius, not as a wildcatter, but as a master organizer and industrial alchemist. He looked at the chaos of the nascent oil industry and saw, with crystalline clarity, the potential for a disciplined, integrated operation. The whisper of oil from Pennsylvania had become a roar in Cleveland, and Rockefeller, ever the pragmatist, had found his calling, not in chasing the ephemeral dream of a gusher, but in building the robust, methodical machine that would tame it. The seeds of his empire were sown, not in the dirt of the oil fields, but in the meticulous calculations of a Cleveland refinery. Part 2, Forging the Empire, 1865 to 1890. Chapter 4, Standard Oil is Born, Vision and Vigor. The year 1870 did not merely mark the turn of a decade, it ushered in a new era for the petroleum industry, and for John D. Rockefeller himself. For years, he had quietly refined his craft, both literally and figuratively, at his Cleveland refinery. He had seen the wild fluctuations of crude prices, the inconsistent quality of competing kerosene, and the wasteful, almost anarchic nature of the market. He had witnessed refiners go bankrupt with dizzying speed, and understood, with absolute clarity, that this fledgling industry, so vital to lighting the nation, desperately needed a steady hand. That hand would be his. On January 10, 1870, John D. Rockefeller, alongside his younger brother William Rockefeller, the brilliant strategist and negotiator Henry M. Flagler, and the refining genius Samuel Andrews, formally established the Standard Oil Company of Ohio. This was not just another business venture, it was the crystallization of Rockefeller's grand philosophy. His vision was audacious in its simplicity, yet revolutionary in its execution, to bring absolute control, relentless efficiency, and complete integration to every aspect of the oil business. The prevailing oil market was a maelstrom of unpredictability. Hundreds of small refiners, each operating independently, flooded the market with varying qualities of kerosene. Prices swung wildly, often plummeting below the cost of production. Transportation was haphazard, dominated by railroads that levied arbitrary rates. It was a speculator's paradise, but a manufacturer's nightmare. Standard Oil's mission was nothing less than to impose order upon this chaos, to stabilize the industry, and in doing so, to create an unassailable advantage. Rockefeller's early strategies were a testament to his meticulous nature and his unwavering focus on long-term profit over short-term gains. First and foremost, Standard Oil was obsessed with producing a superior, consistent product. Their kerosene was reliable, clean-burning, and uniform, a stark contrast to the often dangerous and foul-smelling offerings of competitors. This commitment to quality quickly earned the trust of distributors and consumers alike. Beyond quality, Rockefeller was fanatical about investing in the best available technology and relentlessly cost-cutting. He believed that every penny saved in production translated directly into a competitive edge. Standard Oil's refineries were models of efficiency, constantly upgraded with the latest innovations. They perfected methods to extract more kerosene from each barrel of crude, and famously, they found uses for every single byproduct: gasoline, initially a waste product, later a fortune, lubricants, paraffin wax, even petroleum jelly. While others poured these wastes into rivers, Standard Oil turned them into revenue. This wasn't merely about saving money. It was about maximizing every single resource, squeezing out every ounce of potential. This relentless drive for efficiency, combined with an unshakable belief in controlling every link in the chain from well to consumer, would become the very bedrock upon which Rockefeller would build an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen. The birth of Standard Oil was more than a corporate founding, it was the declaration of a new industrial philosophy, one that would soon challenge the very notions of competition and power in America.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please don't forget to like, comment and share this video. Also don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon, so that you don't miss out the next video. For now, you can continue with the next video or can go through the complete playlist provided here.